All right, if you bought yourself a BC314, maybe I can help. Uh, the plate that's on the two RF amps and the mixer are aluminum, and they have steel flathead screws, little flathead screws. And from them putting the coating on for the antibacterial, and the fact that um, the screws are steel and they're in aluminum or whatever, I had to use heat. Now, I have a desoldering tool, one of these desoldering stations. I use that exclusively. I heated each little bolt up and was able to snap it loose. Now, here's the eye candy inside. These coils, not only are they wound, they dipped them and made them look pretty in wax. Now, what I also want to tell you is most likely you won't need to go in these. Don't touch any adjustments. Leave it alone. There are capacitors in there. If the unit if you trace it up to one of these units, the problem, yeah, you got some. It looks like some silver mica caps, and I know I will tell you they go bad. They go bad a lot, especially the older ones. Now this module here has two of them hiding down there, but after you get everything else working, now my dilemma right now is the band switch won't move at all. So I went looking for some answers. Or even, I know the band switch comes in here, right by this thing. Now what this is a detent. This is an outer nut, an inner plunger with a slot in it, and you can adjust it up and down and then tighten this outer nut. Now underneath this would be, or inside the tube, is a spring. This is my guess. And then there's a ball bearing that's down there. So you tighten this up, and that sets your detent. And if that ball bearing lost its grease on the, it's like a disc with not indentations, gullies in it. And as you turn the band switch, the detent will ride on that disc and then drop into a gully, and that's called detent. And that's, you have 4 detents, I believe, on this switch, and there's 2 bands, 2 settings, and so there's a total of 8 bands. Well, anyway, I undid this, took the tension off, and suddenly I can get the band switch. I don't know if you can see anything moving there. The band switch is now moving. So I know that I need to take this apart, and hopefully I can pull it apart up from the top, get the ball bearing in, clean it, and then getting my fingers down inside of here, clean the disc. See, the problem with this radio is it's got a lot of information. There are a lot of booklets on servicing and that, but most of it has to do with the circuit. I think they basically came to the conclusion they had such a good mechanical mechanism, gears and stuff, that were so reliable that they didn't have to go into that. So for service for the guys that repaired these during World War II, they kept most of the service booklets for the electronic circuit and calibration. So the mechanical is a forgotten part of this radio. And I went reading, and I did find that some type of British unit, and I know that this was a detent, and I put in the word as a key word, and the guy says, of course they say spray it with deox. Oh my God. And I had to take these plates off because I had to be able to follow the band switch long rod that runs through all the wafers. I see if there's any section that has a bushing in there that needs to be oiled. So I had open these up, and like I told you just a few minutes ago, it required heat on some of these bolts, and they're flathead bolts. They're little tiny things, and they're steel. Over here on this one, they're brass, and they have the same problem. In other words, you got to use heat to get them out. So that was the goal of the day, was to get this open and hopefully get a read on this. See, before I undid the plunger or the detent plunger, nothing would move. So I couldn't tell if the binding was the rod that runs through the wafer switches uh, or going up to the front panel. There's also a helix gear at the end, and that needs grease. So you have to realize where's the choke point. And the choke point is the detent is not sliding on the disc. It's froze up. I can't really see it, but just based on other detents that I've worked on over the years, they used to make little miniature detents in the aerospace that I used to work on. They're tiny little balls. They look like an Allen screw, but if you look very closely on the end, there's a ball bearing, and inside of it, internally, was a spring, and then that was, you would screw that in to a unit, like on a servo, it would be a disc with a little detent, and then, as you turn the synchro, it would go into its electrical zero position, and that detent, and that was there for when the guy was installing the synchro in the aircraft. He would turn the gear until he felt the detent, and then he would install it. And on the gear there would be an arrow, and he'd line that other arrow up with the other arrow under the wing of the plane, and then hook it up, and then it had a guy in the plane that would move the flaps, and they make sure that the reading where the flap was matched what the that would be a synchro receiver in the instrument inside. Years ago, it was real simple. They used 400 cycle, 3-phase synchros, and on the end of one, the receiver synchro in the instrument was just a needle. It was real simple, the system, before they went, computers and everything. But I've had a lot of experience with detents, and a lot of times they break. But in this case, everything's gummy because this thing has never been used. So if you get a radio that's new old stock, it's going to have problems that a radio that's been used won't have. And these radios, the mechanical part of it, like I said, there's very little information. There's gears all up in here that have they're split gears, and that's for anti-backlash. And some of them are probably going to need some oil. If I have to, I will take the front plate off and go in and oil those gears correctly. Like I said, this project is to keep me busy. The goal today was to get these covers off and to be able to spot the band spread shaft that goes through through all the wafer switches, and to be able to follow it and see if I need to put any oil anywhere in it. But it doesn't look that way. It just looks like it's floating in those wafer switches. And then the real magic happens right in this area here. You got a helix gear, you got the plunger, and of other gears up in the front. But I'm done for the day. I'll think about this more. Like I said, I lay in bed and I think about it. Now, I showed you once before. Here's my precision oiler. All right, looks like a pen. You unscrew this off like this. All right, here we go. Now see that tip? You press the back tip, and when you press it and let it come back, it'll have a drop of oil right there. And then you go down, you get it in position, and you touch it. And it's called a precision oiler. And I've been using these for years. And they do get leaky, or they are leaky. If you put it somewhere and pick it up, you will have some oil on your hands. All right, here, see, I don't know if you can see the gleam. But anyway, that's where I got to today. And hopefully this helps somebody. But in your case, you probably have one that's been used. Maybe it's been sprayed with WD-40. And a lot of other people would have took this unit and just sprayed WD-40 down in there and called it a day. But remember, WD-40 loosens stuff up, but it's really not a lubricant. Some people say it's got oh, what the hell was it? Anyway, can't think of the name of the liquid that turpentine, maybe turpentine. It leaves a residue, and that acts as a lubricant. But and they might make WD-40 now with a lubricant, but it's made to loosen something like this. But I'm not that type of guy that just sprays stuff like that, because I've had to work on stuff, high-speed card readers, that people just spray WD-40 everywhere. I take the machine totally apart, a total 8-hour rebuild, and the person in the field really thought they did a great job. But what happens is when you spray all the pulleys, the rubber pulleys, it messes them all up. It turned out to be the first page of the manual for service. It tells you to lift this one part up and check the feeder rollers. They're supposed to be black, but they become clear when they wear out. And it was for a Docutel high-speed card reader. But the guy in the field kept telling me what a great job he was doing. And then when he came into the shop, I opened one up in front of him, and I showed him what he should have changed. And the other thing too, the guy that was on it before me pulled the same nonsense. He didn't read. You got the manual. At least open it up and at least thumb through it. First page, first paragraph. Before servicing the unit, remove panel 1 and check the feed, what they be called, cab stands, rollers, and check to make sure that they're in good shape. And when you change those, the machine, it just reads every card correctly. It's hilarious stuff. But I have experience with a lot of different things, but I really like to have a manual to back up before I go, and I break this detent now. I have to be able to know how to set it, and there is no book that says turn it until you feel so many grams. I used to have gram gauges. I had all that stuff, but this radio is set up. Most of the manuals tell you about repairing it electrically, how to do the calibration, and this thing's built like a tank. It's ugly as hell. You might think it looks good, but these coils, they're unique. After they wound them, they dip them, and they I don't know. But anyway, this is supposed to keep me busy so I can sleep at night. I think that's it. All right, that's it for today.